Everybody, this is Bobo here. I hope you all have a blessed day today. Looks like they have a boosted Void Shard event going on. Let's see what they got here. The boosted event is a 2x, and that ends up boosting your rates to a 83% chance of getting a rare, a 16% chance of getting a epic, and a 1% chance of getting a legendary. Now, I don't know about you guys, but a 1% chance of getting a legendary is boosted. I mean, right now it shows the primals is they're at a 16% chance of getting a rare and a 1% chance of getting a legendary. Now I know those are primal and these are voids, and they're slightly a little bigger. But my viewpoint of it is that each shard, since it goes up in value, it should go up in chances of getting legendaries. Now I know the Sacred Shard has the highest chance, which you got a 94% chance of getting an epic, which is what you get almost every single time, and then a 6% chance of getting a legendary. But the rest of them, a 0.5% chance. So you're asking me to pay $5 a shard for a 0.5% chance. Not very generous with your player base, are you, Plarium? But they also have a 10x event going on, which, in order to hit the 10x event, you have to hit a legendary to begin with. So I feel like the boosted rate should go on. The more you pull, the higher your rate goes of getting a legendary. But their 10x champ for this one is Celendio, the Opal Guardian. He has attacks one enemy when counter-attacking. Will repeat this attack against a random enemy. What? Has a 50% chance to place a stun buff for one turn. This debuff cannot be resisted. His A2 is attack one enemy before attacking. Places a 60% increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns. And a 15% shatter buff on this champion for 2 turns. Okay, the shatter is good. Will ignore 25% of the target's defense as well as unkillable block damage buffs. Will ignore 50% of the target's defense instead if the target is under an increased defense, or strengthen, or decrease defense, or stun, or fear, or true fear. Damage based on defense. Okay. That sounds good. Place an extra hit on an enemy under any increased defense, decreased defense, strengthen, stun, fear, or true fear debuff. Will ignore any increased defense, strengthen, buffs, Increases the damage each enemy receives by 5% for each buff and debuff on them. Stacks up to 100%. Okay. And then places an unkillable buff on all allies for 1 turn and a counterattack buff on all allies for 2 turns. Alright. I like counterattacks. This champion is immune to decreased defense, fear, true fear, and stun. That's his passive effect. His active effect activates his champion's Agent of Light skill whenever an enemy tries to place a decreased defense, fear, true fear, or stun debuff on this champion. Does not set the Agent of Light skill on cooldown, which that is his A2, where he attacks one enemy and before attacking he places a 60% decreased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns and a 15% shatter buff on this champion for 2 turns, and then we'll ignore the defense and unkillable and all that. So let's go ahead and get in there and try to get him. Let's see what we can get. Okay, that wasn't a bad pull. Got some points there. I don't think I've ever seen her. Attack one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 50% chance of placing a 25% weaken buff. Will ignore increased defense and strengthen buffs, as well as 20% of the target's defense. If this attack kills an enemy, increases the duration of all buffs on this champion by 1 turn. Places a 50% increased attack buff and a 30% increased defense buff on this champion for 3 turns, then grants an extra turn. Increases this champion's attack by 10% for each enemy with 50% HP or less. Okay. See who she is, since I got 2 of her. Golden Reaper. Attack one enemy, has a 30% chance of decreasing the cooldown of one random ally's skill by 1 turn. Attack all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing a 50% decreased attack buff for 2 turns. Ascended does the same thing, but decreases the turn meter of each target by 20% if they are not under a decreased attack buff. Places a 30% increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns, and boosts their turn meter by 20%. Okay. And then this guy, he looks cool. Ragnar Goldgleam. Attack one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a leech buff for 2 turns. Sacrifices HP equal to 15% of this champion's max HP, then fills this champion's turn meter by 75% and places a shield buff on this champion equal to 20% of their max HP for 3 turns. The shield buff cannot be removed. Okay. The HP sacrificed will help even if it kills this champion, and will ignore shield and block damage buffs, damage based on HPs. So he is an attack and HP based attacker. Places a 50% increased attack buff on this champion for 2 turns. Then attacks to an enemy, has a 75% chance of placing a 25% weaken buff on the target for 2 turns. Also has a 75% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense buff for 2 turns. Dire Grudge decreases the cooldown of this champion's Gleam of Avarice skill by 1 turn every time this champion loses 15% of his HP. So that's his A3. We got Harry, guys. Hold on, I'll be... Alright, we're back. So let's get back to pulling. Let's see some gold, baby. There we go. Okay. Can we get another one? It's not who I was expecting. But he has an attack all enemies, heal all allies by 5% of this champion's max HP, heals an additional 2% of this champion's max HP for each buff on this champion. Attacks all enemies, increases the duration of all allies' buffs by 1 turn. Places a 3% intercept stack on a target ally. Also places a 50% increased resistance buff and a 25% strengthen buff on all allies for 2 turns. Has a 50% chance to convert a buff or a debuff into a buff before it is placed on an ally. Works with the following debuffs. Converts a 25% and 50% decreased attack buff into an increased attack, and so on and so forth. Attack, defense, speed, crit rate, crit damage. And he has a increased speed in all battles by 20%. Okay, solid. Has a 25% chance to stealing a random buff from the target. If this attack is critical, has a 100% chance of stealing a buff from the target. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 75% chance of stealing 15% of the target's turn meter. If it is critical, has a 75% chance of stealing 30% of the target's turn meter. Before attacking, attacks all enemies before attacking, place a 50% increased accuracy buff and a 30% increased crit rate buff on this champion for 2 turns. Increase the duration of all buffs on this champion by 1 turn if this attack is critical. Increases this champion's attack by 2% for each buff they receive. Stacks to 30%. Okay. Yeah, I'll go back to that. See if we can get some more gold right here, people. Oh, got Whisper. Got Whisper. She is a solid nuker. Solid. Attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a 25% weaken buff for 2 turns. Attack one enemy, place an increased attack. buff and a 30% increased crit rate buff on this champion for 2 turns before attacking. If the target has a higher max HP, this champion will ignore defense if the target is under if target is under a weakened debuff. Attacks one enemy 2 times, grants an extra turn if the target is under a decreased defense or weakened debuff, and has a 10% chance of granting an extra turn whenever this champion lands a critical hit, increases damage inflicted on bosses by 20%. She is solid. So is Coldheart. This is probably one of the hardest hitting rares in the game. And it's all thanks to this one right here. She attacks one enemy and decreases the target's turn meter by 100%. Has an extra 30% chance of inflicting a critical hit, which means you only have to crit cap her at 70. She has that 30% chance of inflicting a critical hit. Damage increases according to the enemy's max HP. And notice, her max HP is first, so it scales off the max HP first, then attack. Oh, Doom Screech. Got the old Cackler. Alright, let's get in here and pull these last few singles. I got 3 of her. Last one, guys. Alright. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave a comment, like. It would really help me build my channel. Like I said, leave a comment. Let me know what kind of videos you guys are looking for. My content's based all around like beginner accounts and newer accounts, free-to-play accounts, stuff like that. So, yeah, leave a like, share the video, subscribe, and I'll do my best to bring you the content you guys are looking for. See you in the next one.